So this morning we have three wonderful alumni who are back to talk to y'all. I'm just going to give them a short little bit of time to introduce themselves, kind of how long it's been since they graduated, what they've been up to since then, and yeah. Start, Sean.
Sure. I am Sean Reiter. It's been about 11 months since I graduated. I have been up to, I started a master's program in education around midsummer and lived in Baltimore and taught high school math a little bit. Wasn't really feeling it, so I came back to Tech to start a master's in regular math. And I've been in Blacksburg since about January.
Great, thanks, Sean.
Hey,
my name is Joseph Mills. I graduated 23 months ago, basically 11 months, Sean. So graduated here in 2017. Shortly after that, I started working for the university, kind of in housing. So while I was here, I was an RA, and then I transitioned to like a temporary role in housing. And during that time, I sat for and passed the CPA exam. And then starting in January, I went on with an accounting firm in Reiter, Virginia, and did tax accounting for a year. And then after that year was up, I decided that like a year of tax accounting is like more than sufficient. Like didn't do any more taxes, and so transitioned to a master's program here in public administration in January as well. So Sean and I actually were kind of in contact before January came about. It was like, hey, let's you know, you want to go to grad school? I want to go to grad school. Let's try to live together. And so that worked out. And so yeah, did you want us to talk about like our experience in the HRC, or is that next?
I mean, if you want to a little bit, you can go for it. Feel free.
Let's just get through. Well, we'll do introduction to
Yeah.
Thanks, Joe. I'm Ralph Hale. I graduated with my math is right, and I might let you two check here in a minute. 35 months ago, to keep up the theme, and I do things. I have done and continue to do an assortment of things. My degree is in architecture. I did a whole lot of travel while I was in architecture that was maybe a little bit more than what most people do. After graduating, I went home and did some baking. And by baking, really, I mean I did some dough making, and I made a book. And then I got bored of that and decided to do a little accounting, and then I got a little tired of that and had a conversation with a former professor of mine who said, hey, I'm always starting a project I think you'd be good for, and so I've ended up back up here, and I'm doing some audio editing and some animating and some coding, and yeah.
All right, so then, yeah, if you guys want to talk a little bit about kind of what your experiences were within the HRC. I know at least two of you were RAs. I don't know if you were kind of what some of your experiences were within the HRC, and what some of your like fondest memories are as you've like graduated and continued on.
Yeah, so I was an RA. I did a lot of things here. I think me and Alex Oakes are the only two people to proudly hold the title of like having held every HRC leadership position. Just a little flex.
And he'll be here
Now
this coming Friday.
Here.
So be at Gillies, 7:30 in the morning next Friday.
Yeah. Great guy. Yeah, so I was
like actually.
I lived on full-time my freshman year. Sophomore year, I was an apartment fellow, also on fourth high. I was director of academic enrichment on the college council at the time, the college council, which is now the Commons Council. And then I was an RA here for 2 years, SRA for my last semester, both years on 6th level. Yeah, the HRC was like, yes.
Alex didn't hold the SRA position.
Okay, yeah, so I'm actually, let it be known that I'm the best.
He told me to say that.
Pay you later. Yeah, it was, the HRC is like, has and always will hold a very special place in my heart. It was like deeply formative, the community here. I think in part, just like the people stick out most to me. I mean, like Joseph and I lived together, right? And most of my my closest friends from here have stemmed from here in one way or another, and I'm grateful for that because I feel like I've learned a lot from friends, but also mentors, and then was like really grateful because I got the opportunity to kind of pass it on myself. I think one of my fondest memories was being 6 lows RA. Such a good, so many of my former residents. Yeah, and like that was a very fulfilling experience. It was cool to come into the HRC, live here for 4 years, see myself as a very specific kind of person my freshman year, or like be a kind of person. Don't know if I like really understood myself fully yet. Grow a lot and like really understand myself, and then in the same place that I got to grow, like pay that forward to at least hopefully a few other people. It was very, very special, and I think that that's something that's still a lot of like the experiences I've had here, like being an RA specifically, I think have really formed the person I am today. So, yeah.
Great. All right, so history of the HRC and the Mills family. So,
I'll fact check you on the early parts. I was there for it.
The HRC opened in 2011, I think. My older brother.
That is correct.
My older brother was one of the like a freshman incoming class, first year of the building, and so for 2 years I just kind of saw the building. You know, I came and saw him every now and then, but every time I talked to him, just like this amazing community that he was a part of. He had a lot of really good friends in it, and the building was brand spanking new at the time. So every time I came in, it was just like the elevators were quick, and, and it was just everything was so nice. Not saying it was nice now, but it was pristine. So my senior year of high school, I applied Virginia Tech, and of course I applied to be in the HRC, and I got a letter rejecting me. So I actually did not get into the HRC, and I was crushed. Just a lot of feelings about that. I was like a really angsty high school senior. But then lo and behold, it was like March or April of my senior year, and Russell Schrader sent me an email and said that they were doing like double checks of applications, and he offered me admission to the HRC, and so that was just like, I mean, so amazing. And then to come, like a fond memory is just moving into the HRC. My older brother lived a floor below me, as well as 2 other guys that I actually went to high school with. And just like right from day one, Adam introduced me to his friends, and I just remember being like, went from not accepted to the HRC to like on day one coming into a community where I already felt like I really belonged. And so that's just like an amazing feeling. I think anyone might have at college, but for me to have it so early was really nice. Other amazing feelings becoming an RA in the HRC was very validating, right, for someone to hire you into a position where you get to connect with residents and kind of be a leader. And so I really remember being an RA fondly. I think that I can be guilty of times of complaining about maybe the administrative part of being an RA. That's not really a lot of fun. But the experience itself as a whole was phenomenal, and I think it really helped me to develop as a person. And I would like to think that there are probably people that look back on interactions they had with me and thought like that was useful for my development as well. And then so my junior year, then Michael comes into the HRC, and he's still holding strong. Finally, for years I was like, Michael, you gotta be an RA, Michael, you gotta be an RA. And he was like, no way, never.
Look at him now.
Yeah, look at him now. So yeah, all of my best friends from college are friends I made in the HRC. It is my girlfriend. We just have celebrated over 2 years together. She's from the HRC, and it's just like an amazing community that's really shaped and given so much to my life. Like I can't imagine where I would be or how different I would be if I hadn't had this experience.
What do I remember about the early days? I had a little gray hair then, and I've got a lot more now. So I went to architecture school here, so I have kind of 2 distinct friend groups, one that was through the HRC and one that was more architecture, and they're about even and equal in terms of closeness and that sort of thing. So I had a little different experience as far as that goes, but I think that is something that is really valuable from what you all were talking about, that was an experience that I had in architecture. This experience of kind of closeness and a community of people with an interest in things that is kind of a foundation. But you also get that here, and I feel like that's not a thing that you get directly in your residence freshman year a lot of places on campus. Man, I'm really losing it. Give me some direction here. Give me some direction here. Yeah, so I was a freshman coming in the first year when your brother came in, and he was rooming with another Adam Osborne, and they formed the Beard Midi. At one point, I was definitely in both a toga and a suit at the same time as a result of that interaction that they had. These are things that happened in the early days of the HRC fairly regularly, and I feel like they still do now to a degree, probably, surely. As many interesting people as there are in this place. I'd be very disappointed if there's not. But, because I think that's really the fantastic thing about this place, is it's this kind of laboratory where you've got all of these interesting students, but also faculty from all across the university. Like because of my experience in architecture, I know several architecture professors pretty well, but also because of and through the HRC, I've got close connections with several professors that I've never even had for class, and that's something that I think that is kind of critical about this place, is that it gives you a stepping off point from which to make connections to, a really broad section of the university. I know none of us really changed majors very much along the way. Did either of you?
No.
A little bit? How much?
I was an engineer.
So you went from working to numbers to working with numbers. Great. In different ways, admittedly. But like, Katie Cheek changed her major how many times?
I don't think she's graduated.
She's still here.
It's a question. I know she did because I was there.
Yeah.
But I saw her trip across that stage. But she did make it out the door. It was impressive. But and part of that is through Jamie Wigger, who also was Andrew Pregnall's roommate at one point. But she changed her major probably about as many times as Katie did, actually. Both of them went through industrial design at one point, so that might have something to do with it. But Katie graduated in industrial design, I think. Anyway. This, to a degree, I think this building is really good at facilitating the exploration of what Dr. Dudley called why the hell not.
So then kind of going off of what some of you touched on, how have you been able to maintain contact and connections with the friends you've made here within the HRC, especially those that you were friends with but maybe not as close with, to still room together?
I think it's a very extensive network of people. That's interesting because it spans living here 4 years. There are people I know from various times during my tenure in the HRC. Yeah, it's been because it is true that most of my closest friends are I met in the HRC, and I still maintain contact with them because they're some of my closest friends. So that's I do like them and keep them around. And as far as the other people, it's I feel kind of it always makes maybe a little sad, but it's so many people are going to come in and I feel touch your life in a certain kind of way, and in a way that might be very significant but limited, right? Joseph is one of my closest friends, and he's that's I'm kidding.
Like, people, I'm gonna change it now. Jordan's one of my yeah, I mean, like, that's a good example, right? Like, they're very, like, significant people in my life, and I have no doubt will continue to be. But I can think, too, like, my, freshman year RA had, like, a very profound impact on me. And Adam Johnson was an RA once upon a time. We spoke last semester, but also had a very profound impact on me, right? So, like, those are people that I'm definitely close with, and I at a time felt like I was much closer with, but also don't talk to or see as regularly. But I think it, like, I carry those with me kind of a way of, like, how I've been impacted more than anything, and, like, the lessons I've taken away from them. And that's, like, that for me is kind of a cool thing, that to be able to, like, keep that in mind and, like, pay that forward, hopefully, in some of the interactions I've had. Yeah, but it is definitely a lot of good people that I've met and, like, known, and I'm very, very fortunate to know. But maybe don't talk to as regularly, but still, it's like that. I remember those things very, very fondly, and also don't feel like I could. I still talk to a lot of people here, even once a year or so. Mm-hmm. I think I saw like a lot of. Someone got like married a couple months ago. Joe. Yeah, one of our friends got married. I know, and that's like kind of cool too, because you're now at the point where I'm just like running into a bunch of people from that I haven't seen in a long time. It still feels like that's like a commonality, right? This is a connection you can build upon.
So to answer your question, just like how do you stay in touch with friends? Devices mostly. So
no
Facebook, texting, calling, things like that. And everyone knows the answer. Like I think most people could assume that like phones and calling and maybe seeing each other occasionally is probably the way you stay in touch. But one direction I want to take the question is kind of this thing you run into whenever you graduate college, if you move, into a professional career, is something you'll experience after living in a community of 200 to 300 people and being so well connected, is that you're going to lose touch with a lot of people. And I'm speaking from my personal experiences. You think about like, am I being a bad friend because I'm not staying in close contact with so many people that I used to be so closely connected with? And so ultimately what you will have to find, just because of time, is you will have a few key friends from the community that really stick with you. And then how you stay connected to the community at large is the few close friends that you have, they will probably have other close friends from the community that they stay in contact with that didn't perfectly overlap with your friend group, and on and on and on. And so just as when things happen in the building, you probably didn't witness it firsthand, but you probably still hear through friends like how things are going, and that's probably how you keep up with a lot of what's going on in the community. And that exact same thing happens, is that, I'm not direct friends with Nate Montgomery or Wes Williams, but through Colby, I can keep up with what they're doing in their lives. And so people kind of report back and share out. And so you still have, it's almost like the building still exists, just the geography between us has just gotten much, much bigger.
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting that the time that we live in now, there are tools in our pockets at the moment through which we can seamlessly and frictionlessly talk to anybody just about anywhere, with a very few kind of minor exceptions, and even then they're very minor exceptions, just in a moment. I was having a conversation the other evening with a guy that works at Facebook in New York, and like that was something that kept coming up, is just how frictionless. That's not the way to put it. Really, the way to put it is there's no friction. It's not a matter of it's not the same thing. Communication is now, and being the old codger that I am, sometimes I use mail too. So occasionally, like, and erratically, like less than once every 6 months, I'll send somebody half of a book worth of letter. So that's another way.
Yeah, and I have an added thought, is that because I said we're like geographically spread apart, I still think of people based on like where they lived in the building. Joe Hum doesn't live in Maryland. Joe Hum lives on 4th High.
What are some of the skills that you learned in your time here at the HRC that has helped you as you sort of transition to the real world?
Skills. It's like skills. It's hard to think of almost like maybe feels like a lot of soft skills, which are like you could think of things that are not necessarily like building a house is like a hard skill, I guess, right? I didn't learn that here. But I did learn I feel like how to
my interpersonal interactions with people, being able to do that, and I think connect with people and professors, people that are not only on a much more meaningful level, but also kind of a more surface level, I guess, that you might have to do when you meet somebody, networking or something along those sort of lines. Those kind of interpersonal skills were really valuable, and I think facilitated by the fact that I lived in a very interpersonally driven community, was definitely helpful too. I mean, I was a very shy, insecure freshman. I did not want to come out of my shell, but I was fortunate to have people that made me come out of my shell. I feel like actually brought out a very social side of me that I didn't know that I had. So that kind of relationship building type stuff, and I think everything that comes in with that, in part too, right, being an RA, and taking that another step forward, right, this community. Being an RA isn't specific to here, but the community allowed me to do that. And I feel like the way the HRC has always structured the RA role allowed me to do that in a very authentic and specific way, which was not always afforded in every community at Virginia Tech. So grateful for that as well. Yeah, I think interpersonal skills and ability is the biggest thing.
Yeah, I definitely agree. To hone in on, I guess, one specifically, for me it was listening skills. And so I fancy myself like a pretty good talker. I love to talk, and I love to get out the first idea. I'm really just a terrible person to have class with, because whenever the professor's like, "What do you think?" I'm like, "Oh, me, yeah." But really just trying to slow down and listen, right? If you're going to be a member of a very large community, with people with different backgrounds, experience, and interests than you, you're going to have a much better time if you walk into those interactions with a bigger ear than a bigger mouth, because people want to be heard, people want to share, and that's the only way you're going to connect and understand the community. If I just go around and tell everyone I'm Joseph Mills, I do this, when I leave that conversation, the only thing I took away from that is that I'm really great. So I have not informed myself at all, or broadened myself either. I'm just pushing a brand. So definitely listening, trying to slow down, trying to not formulate thoughts and ideas or responses before someone's finished articulating their point of what they want to say, and really just trying to appreciate a person for who they are and where they are, instead of just it's less thinking about yourself and more in every interaction trying to genuinely appreciate the person you're having an interaction with. That's a big skill I learned here through the HRC, but also I'm coupling that with the RA role as well, right? I don't know if I would have had the foresight or the luck to stumble across that just on my own without having the RA experience.
Yeah, and are you?
But yeah, you got.
I was gonna jump back in for a second. I think asking questions kind of goes in that vein. Listening, very kind of actively listen, or draw certain things out of people was definitely something I feel I developed here, and in part by watching other people and having them ask me questions. Realize the kind of impact you can have by asking the right questions. How many of you guys know Frank Shishak? He's the king, question king. You'll meet him and he'll ask you. I think the first time he asked me what I wanted to do with my life.
What was
that story? So just it's that kind of thing too. I feel you made me think of that when you were talking about listening. That's a way to really also pull kind of information out of somebody and get to know them in a very intentional way.
And then maybe not so much a skill, but a practice is just saying yes to opportunities, saying yes to one-time opportunities, Principal's Tea, because you're only going to have that one speaker probably once a year, we're going to
if ever again.
right, and or just like different one-off events. Like saying yes always leads to more than what you expected. Right, it's never just like showing up, sitting in the audience, and then leaving, unless like you're in a hurry or whatever. But most of the time, if you say yes, that's my best connections leaving the university, or my best experiences, or the best opportunities that I had at school didn't come from like grinding away in my room on problem sets. It came from like that time when I was like, should I go to this? Should I not? I don't have a lot of time. Dang it, I'm gonna go anyways. And then it turns out like I come back and I'm like, I'm really glad that I went to that, because like, what benefit would it have been if I had just like worked on my problems another hour, or versus doing this thing that you probably don't get the chance to do. So moving forward in your lives, in the HRC and beyond, like say yes to like the one-time opportunities, and just like you just got to go for it.
There are a lot of really amazing one-time opportunities that come through this place. So I'm going to take most of what you guys just said and then rephrase it in ways that people who have passed through here before me put it to me originally. And I'm going to go in reverse order because I can remember the things you just talked about best at the moment. So talking about saying yes to things, I'm going to rephrase it in the way that Jack Dudley so memorably did. It's not just a matter of saying yes, it's a matter of enthusiastically saying, why the hell not? And it's not just like principles T and, oh, I guess I'm going to have to miss this one last bit of studio this one day to go see this one person. It's also a matter of like the major scholarships, which I think are a question at the moment. Like, and you guys are probably all past that, but like applying to those, even though you probably don't have a chance, is like such a I mean, but you do, but you don't, but you do. Like that's something to do. What's another one that like all of the travel that I did fourth year was like a direct result of why the hell not? Like in architecture, you're presented with this broad swath of options because they really want you out of town fourth year for at least some time. And I definitely took a particularly distinct mode of doing fourth year. And don't be afraid to like fail a couple of times, because you're in a place where like that's okay. And in some ways it's expected. As far as this notion of time allocation goes, I'm also going to take that and rephrase it. Be generous with your time to other people, not just in terms of, and to yourself, not just in terms of going to see, this. We've had, there have been some really kind of amazing people that come through Principal's Tea at one time or another day. Amazing professors here and also people outside the university. People that have been guests to other events here, but also to the people that are coming in as you're stepping into leadership positions and whatnot. But, no. And yeah, that sort of thing.
Cool. What were some of your favorite traditions that were part of the HRC that when you were here that you're either glad that we still have, or that you've heard have kind of dissipated and you wish you would see come back?
Was No Pants Friday you or your brother?
Oh, really?
I was wondering about that.
That was strictly a Maine Campbell thing. Also, that was probably Adam Osborne, who was, I'm pretty sure, from Maine Campbell.
Okay.
And then, because I was there for it. I mean, it depends on what you mean by No Pants Friday. I mean, our shorts pants is a toga pants, is a kilt pants. Yeah. No pants does not mean no. Anyway, there's no pants, and then there are no pants. But anyway, yes, that was a thing. It was the Adams, strictly Maine Campbell though. But anyway.
You guys used to do Bonfire, right? I liked Bonfire a lot. I think that's like probably one of my that was like I don't particularly like singing, but for some reason I remember Bonfire very fondly. I think it was like the first really big social event that I went to in the HRC, and I think it was very cool to have like see a lot of people come out to it. It reminded, I think one of the reasons it speaks to me, it was like one of the first big events I went to, I think during my first week here, and I remember being like, I was such a bum in high school, like I didn't really do anything, and like I was always didn't participate in anything spirited, so that I think I remember very fondly because of how like spirited people were. I realized, I think in that moment that this was a very special place with a lot of special people. I'm trying to think if there's anything we don't run anymore that I really enjoyed at the time. I think I remember like there were a few. I miss My News Monday. Yeah, that was just cool for like the spirit of it. One of the RAs my freshman year did an event called My News Monday. Where
was that?
Yeah, it was Adam.
Everyone who used to live in the building was actually named Adam.
And they all lived in the same room.
Same hall. Yeah, that was like something special. I think I remember that because it was just like something that someone was very passionate about and was something to bring to the community, which has always been one of my favorite things about the community, that you get a lot of diverse interests and getting shared with you and you get to experience, and also possibly bringing that yourself. There was a friend of mine did, Shay, who did like a diversity seminar once, which was really like very incredible. I think like 70 people showed up. It was for me at least, like a very moving experience. Oh, okay, now I know this is a little bit different. What we used to do in alternative spring break trip too, as far as thinking of things that really moved me. And that ran for a few years. I went my freshman year, and I actually ran it my sophomore year. I think that was just like a very eye-opening experience in a way that like I kind of didn't expect, and a cool way that was like something the community did that brought people from the community together that might not otherwise know each other. Some of my best friends to this day I met on that trip. My freshman year, there were 16 of us, and none of us I've ever really lost touch. But those were people previously that I had never known or never hung out with. But we were brought together by a kind of common interest. And I remember being pulled to that because I'm from New York, and I was told like, you don't want to go home for spring break. That's too far. You should come on this instead. We went to Oak Hills, West Virginia. So like eye-opening personally for like the service of it, but I think just like what that meant and kind of like why it was happening, and the fact that just like it was the HRC community doing it was very cool. So I'm sad that's not happening anymore. No, it's not happening anymore, right? To my knowledge.
Not that I'm aware.
As far as I was aware, it no longer continued. Bring it back.
Yeah, before I go into my response, I just want to reiterate, I did an alternative spring break with Sean, and Sean was our group leader the time we did it, and it was just like amazing. Like, not everything that is like good is like so just like simple as it just being like candy, right? It was just like so complex, and there was so much just like vulnerability and so much like working together and reflection and all these things, that it was really just like what you would hope life and development and like being in community with another person is about. Like really just just looking back on it, it was just crazy awesome. And so like alternative spring break's really good. Soup night is something that I really enjoyed, and like regrettably I didn't really get into it until later on. Really unfortunately, early in my HRC tenure, I was kind of like anti-event Like that was kind of like the badge I wore. It was like, well, just because you're doing something, I'm not gonna go. But it's not like I was going anywhere else. It was like I was just having like hanging out in my room with like my older brother, or like someone else. Still like in the community with doors open, but like we were kind of lame in that. But like later on, like soup night was something that I ended up really enjoying. Like making a meal with some really good friends, often with faculty, and then just having people show up and like share a bowl and share, you know, their night with one another. And one of the things that I kind of want to comment on about that is that soup night is great because it's usually on a Friday night, and soup night is probably has the potential to be the best event for the freshmen and sophomores in this building, right? And I'm going to be like rain on the parade, but like we don't need our freshmen and sophomores like out partying and drinking, or like partying and drinking in the dorm or the residence hall. Sorry. The most involved members of our community usually are those who got connected and involved early on. And so I think that the best way to bring those young people together is on a Friday night. That's prime time. If you can have an event where the young people get together, form the community, form their community identity, and then as they get older and older through the community, hopefully they'll carry that through. I'm not saying it has to be like all the time, but a Friday night event like soup night could do a lot of good for the community if it could get a lot of buy-in from our younger members. So that's all I'm going to say about that. And so this wasn't ever really a tradition, but something I wish would still happen is that Adam Joslin, his last round as an RA, so my sophomore year, I lived in the fourth level apartment my sophomore year, and one of my roommates fenced on the club fencing for the university. And so on Adam Joslin's last rounds, we took our pants off because it was no pants Friday. And then we all got sabers, and then we paraded Adam Joslin through the building with sabers while I played fanfare for a common man on my sophomore year. And that was an excellent tradition. So that should come back. I think that's the one and only time that happened.
So the SRA's last rounds get an escort. That's just what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
Because he also had terrible luck on rounds. Like, really bad luck on rounds. Anyway.
I think that's about it.
Okay.
Back to you, Rob.
I mean, I don't know what's like still a thing or not a thing so much as YouTube, having been out here for 35 months. But things that were valuable to me or to other people as I knew them. I mean, I'm going to start with a thing that I think probably is still a thing, but if it's not a thing, you really got to figure out how to make it a thing again. And that is wild cross-disciplinary conversations at 2 in the morning in various locations in the building. I mean, we had a great one about finance in the lounge. I don't know what time it was. It's ungodly late, but and I had an assortment of other ones with different people from all over the building at various points in my time here. So like that, but also, I mean, I would second soup nights, which was started by Patrick Goley, who was one of the 2 original co-presidents of the HRC. The original structure of the College Council is not what it was not what it is today by a lot. That first year was, I think, a very interesting and trying time for a lot of people, but we got through it. And I think was actually kind of headed up by Michael Margin at the last there, wasn't it? Was he the last? Do you know who? He's the last person I know of to have headed it up.
So you're still doing Audrey.
Yeah.
Is
We
it?
actually
Is it a
have
thing
the
again?
person
Awesome.
who runs giving night.
Okay. Because I think there was a break there where it was like not so much a thing. So that's fantastic that that's a thing again. Patrick was a professional chef for like a while before he came back to school. But anyway, what else? I mean, I'm assuming principals still think that's another nice kind of Friday afternoon thing if you don't have studio to be in. What else? I mean, I'm assuming the community still goes on like hikes places from time to time because that's a thing to do around here. That's real good. What else? People did pancakes on Sunday mornings, which was a kind of another flavor of soup night.
I just love this phrase. I pointed at me and it's like,
what else? Is D Tuesday still a thing?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so you're covering most of the like basic bases. I'm hoping that interesting events pulled together by random individuals in the community, like what Shay did, or like Corny Joke Night that my apartment ran as the first event of the year one time because we hit the ground running. I knew people who had a lot of corn, so I brought a lot of corn and then we grilled a lot of corn. But you know, things like that are, I think, the where the value lies for the most part. I may be, you know, I'm definitely missing some things. I swear I'm missing some things. Is the joint Hillcrest HRC Honors Coffee House? Yeah, that's another one that's real nice. I am very bad at recalling individual words when I really need them sometimes. Especially without a cup of coffee in the morning. I mean, do those things line up for you all? Is that, is that?
Does your HRC exist when you were here?
It came into being, I think, while I was in Iowa. I think.
Did you go back to the HRC after going to Ireland?
Yes. Almost didn't, and then I did. There was a question as to whether I was going to do architecture in 6 years or architecture in 5 for a second. And if I decided to take the 6-year model, I was going to not be in and be in again. But anyway, but I did. And I did.
I think that's pretty much the questions that I have. So now, if anyone else has any questions, feel free to ask.
It seems like you guys all changed your path a bunch of times. So, to me, that's really scary.
Why the hell not?
Yeah.
We'll be fine.
So, what kind of, I know that it's kind of sometimes easy to stay in a path once you're in it, so what kind of prompted you to change and how were your inner feelings when that happened?
I mean, I know changing is like, I think typically a scary thing. I think I'm okay with change to a fault because I don't like, this is, like if I don't like doing something, I typically, I'm quick to not do it anymore, which is often a very bad thing. Yeah, I mean, like that was it for me, right? It's like kind of like I said, so as long as I could remember wanting to teach high school math, so I did that, right? I graduated and I joined a kind of like teacher pipeline program, very similar to Teacher America, but different in model in the way that I thought was better. I had moved to Baltimore, planning on living there for 4 years and getting a master's in education and teaching for 4 years. And that's what I had always wanted to do. And I was very truly excited about that at the time. But I got there and realized that it was just not what I expected it to be. And I don't know, I'm going to answer your question, kind of what was this needs to change. It was just something was just marginally different. And I do think I am quick to make changes when I feel like something is not quite going the way that I really want it to be. And that was I think the big thing was wow, what's changed since graduation is I used to do a whole lot of math. And now I do a whole lot less math. And that was I think pretty quickly I realized it was disappointing me. And also just coming home very stressed. Oh, no, not like when you were not coming out. I mean, so I don't know. It was like, I think it was a whole combination of factors. It was like very trying for a time. I think for me particularly, I had formed this like very significant part of my identity. Was like, most people knew me as like the guy who wanted to be a high school math teacher. Like I had spent, that was like very like formative for me. I had like my experience in high school, and I really wanted to give that back. So there was a long bit of time where I was actually just like, I can't like, I don't think I can leave this. And by a long bit of time, it was like about a month. So grand scheme of things, like maybe not that long, but that one. Yeah. I mean, it feels like I was in Baltimore for a very short amount of time, relatively. I've been back here for like 3 months, right? Yeah, I think it's like passion has always been deeply important to me, and I realized what I was doing was just not fulfilling me, and like was not quite what I actually was passionate about anymore. Like I had changed at some point over my 4 years in college and didn't even realize it, and my kind of main interests had switched around a little bit. So ultimately, like once I kind of realized it, once I made the decision, once I kind of realized that, it actually wasn't that challenging to make a decision. I was actually here visiting the weekend, and Dr. Terzaga was talking about like his job as a professor and like what that entails. And it was just like, oh, like no, that's what I want to be doing. Like what I'm doing right now is not it, but that is what I want to be doing. And like from there on out, it was kind of like just going through the motions to apply and come back here. Hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah. For me, it's like, one, you have to like understand yourself. Like it's a testament of like how well do you understand yourself and what you want, and how capable are you of analyzing like the situation you're in. And then if you start to realize like, wait a second, like what I'm doing, my path is not aligning with the values or like the self I am. And so I think about a lot of things in metaphors because like they're easy for me to like communicate. So it's like everybody's pretty much like a lobster, and so your identity is like your shell, right? And it's like you spend it like protects you. It's who you are. It's how you present yourself to the world, and it's really nice. And you can spend like a lot of time in it and feel really good and like it's yourself. But then, like Sean says, like sometimes something changes, right? Like sometimes you get big, and all of a sudden you realize like that shell doesn't fit you anymore. And it's like, how long do I like keep crammed in this shell? Because like I'm really comfortable with the way it presents to the world and the protection it affords me. And I know as soon as I like shed it, I'm going to be like vulnerable for a while. I'm going to have to like recreate identity. I'm going to have to go through that process. And so, really, the biggest hang up for me early on making hard decisions is I'm always like, how are people going to like perceive me? Like, are people going to like doubt my capabilities? Because it's like admitting you're wrong whenever you change path in a way. People can see it that way. Yeah. But for us to make the change, it's like just getting to a position where it's like, I have to do this for me. Like no one else is living my life. Like I have to do this because I know it's right for me, and other people just have to trust that.
Yeah, I mean that sounds about right.
I think I'd like to kick in here too on Sean's. I guess all three of you have been some decent change of pace in life recently, and I remember after graduating, I was trying to step between jobs. It's really stressful. It's incredibly stressful. You think the world's going to crash down around you as you make that decision. But if you can remove yourself from the situation and realize that it's that difficult because both of the things are very good options, come 2 or 3 or 4 months down the road, it's not going to matter. You're going to be happy once you get there, like Sean, like Joseph, like Rob. The day continues to turn. There's more stuff on the other side. Just keep going forward.
Yeah, and I'm very glad I had like another life in Baltimore for like 8 months. I think I needed it to like truly realize that I had kind of like outgrown my shell, to use the metaphor that Joseph did, because I am like very vindicated now that what I am doing and what I am studying is exactly what I want to be studying at this moment. And I think I have a better idea of what I want to do going forward. Right? So making the wrong decision is kind of just like, it's like data, right? You just get more data and like about you and what you're interested in, and that like data informs future decisions or future changes.
That's a very liberal arts answer.
I'm gonna do you one better. I really like Bob Frost's poem, "Two Roads Diverged in a Wood," because one of the the way that that's often interpreted is take the unbeaten path. But if you really spend some time with it, the line is, and both that morning equally lay in leaves no step and trodden black. Whichever path you take, it's not, in the grand scheme of things, like it'll matter, but it also won't matter. So you'll be fine. Keep a journal. That comes on the recommendation of Nikki Giovanni. So, like, actually do that. Because, solid.
Oh, okay. Figured out. So this is kind of a selfish question. I'm a graduating senior, and I know there's a few other people in this room who are also graduating. I was wondering if you have any tips or insights, something you found since graduating, how you spend the time between that and starting a job, and then going forward from there. Like anything you just noticed that's different about the way you had to look at things, go through your day.
I think that you're a lot more responsible for kind of like downtime. So in college, you're just kind of like overwhelmed. It seems like with, so many obligations all the time. Like there's no confine on when's an appropriate time for a group meeting in college. So like almost every minute there's a pre-committed. But leaving college and moving into professional role is that you find yourself with like much larger chunks of uncommitted free time. And so you have like a lot more responsibility for filling up that time with things that are valuable to you, I guess.
Or to others.
Or to others, that's right. Because like one of the things I struggle with is like I waste free time. Like I use my free time doing things that I don't enjoy, like social media or just like 10-minute videos on YouTube, just like things that are not enhancing my quality of life.
But they make the monkey brain feel good.
They make the monkey brain feel good, yeah. Ralph is exactly right, yeah. And our generation especially, we have so much access to just like
things that make the monkey brain feel good.
All of these unfulfilling things to do. So like what I would say is that, your biggest challenge, or the biggest challenge I see in a lot of graduating kids our age, is that being able to engage in meaningful activities during the free time you're going to find yourself with.
And I think that's where going back to some things we talked about earlier, trying to set rules to yourself, for yourself, about being generous with others with your time can really help. When you get this random email from Katrina at some time a few weeks ago, it says, "Hey, would you be available this Sunday morning?" You say, "I can be generous with my time. Why the hell not?" And off you go. But and I think that's another thing that's fairly valuable about this community is you should have connections with people that will present you with those opportunities because they're also generous with their time for other people. Because and then also going back to things that make the monkey brain feel good, figure out how to like structure your time with the things that make the monkey brain feel good. Yeah. Do you have
Who's
to
graduating?
I
think so.
You got nominated for Junior Fellow Speaker twice. Which is, yes, it's a little concerning.
Junior fellow.
Yep.
Youngins.
Why did they put it's a question. Why you get asked to do these things sometimes, right? That reminds me.
And if we don't have any more questions yet, Tim?
Did you have one first? Okay. First, thanks for coming again. You're all alumni of East AJ, so you're more than welcome to come to events as either graduate fellows for you, or you're technically eligible to be a senior fellow. So if you want to come to D2 or Principal C or anything like that, just let us know.
Okay. I mean, I'm around. I keep a fairly busy social calendar, but
Okay.
I am also, able to make.
That's fine.
I'm also very able to make adjustments to that calendar, though.
All right.
I'm out of town like a week a month.
Okay. So D Tuesday we pay for senior fellows.
Yeah.
So it's a free meal. Even
Okay.
if you hate the conversation. you guys were all here at the start of East AJ and saw how it formed and had fun building your relationships. And we've talked about how you're maintaining the relationships. But I think at some point the conversation needs to be brought forward to the alumni of how to maintain the relationship with the community past it and build the alumni network.
That's been a challenge.
What is the kind of
entire time
outreach that you think about for connecting you to the community? What kind of structure needs to be put in place that you feel might help you with that regard?
Separate listserv might not hurt. Just because like so many people unsubscribe from the actual one. I like never want to personally. I think it's so funny.
Oh, it's great. I've got a separate folder in my inbox that all of those go into, and then I open it occasionally.
Alumni listserv would be really cool.
Yeah.
Come get your water.
It would also be a little terrifying.
Yeah.
I mean, I could maybe see some sort of like alumni mentorship program.
I think there was some kind of talks to set that up eventually. Like when maybe
Yeah.
Danny Murray was.
Danny Murray was trying to spearhead that.
Yeah, and nothing maybe quite ever
I mean, it'd be a lot
It
of work.
briefly
but-
existed.
Yeah, and I think there's like a good enough network now of alumni that are people, and I think like some people maybe when they leave the HRC have a tendency to kind of want to like overcorrect and like really distance themselves, which I think makes sense. But I think like, especially I can think of some names of people a few years out that would like love to be involved in some capacity. But yeah, like some kind of like separate communication network I think would be good for people because it's a little bit easier to palate.
You might talk to the people that are involved heavily with like the honors alumni and figure out what has worked for them. And I think Ms. McIntyre will be your first point of contact on that journey. But Shamir that is involved in somehow with them was at that same thing with the guy from Facebook that I was at the other evening. That's the thing, is like people are back in town relatively regularly, and it's just a matter of kind of shoehorning into catching them while they're here and getting them here.
Yeah.
As far as any kind of in-person interaction goes.
It is an interesting question though, because and I feel like it's one that people have been grappling with for quite a while. Like how you can people stay invested. It's like definitely not like we have the answer. Yes. No, I did disclose. No, I know what you're saying. Well, I have it, but you have to pay me for it.
That and for the taxes.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure people too would like. I mean, I think when I was like graduating, I thought like kind of it'd be cool, right? To like one day come back here and like think of, like fraternities do the alumni thing super well. I don't know how that exactly differs. Like, be kind of curious, right? Because I mean, like my friend of a friend's dad is like in town this weekend, and he's like 70, visiting all his old fraternity brothers. Like they're all hanging out, like still here in Blacksburg, right? So maybe take notes from the Greeks. Not the Greeks.
I think Hillcrest also has a pretty good alumni network.
Yeah.
Is my impression.
Right, and they've been around for a while too.
Yeah.
One of their previous preceptors, Leanne Communis, and it was one of their first.
Yeah.
She was there like over.
Yeah.
It's like, I mean, one of the things I picked up from teaching is like just steal ideas. Like, don't make it harder.
Well, all the time.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
It's like if someone's doing something else well, like don't try and reinvent the wheel if you don't have to.
I mean, there'll be some adaptations to do, but probably the good idea, like the idea that works, already exists.
Yeah.
I mean, like, as someone who lives in Hillcrest now, I know that Hillcrest, I feel like Hillcrest is way more rooted in tradition than the HRC is. Like, they stick to their stuff. Like, I know that board games are like a big thing in Hillcrest. Like, they were, and they still are. And we get like a lot of recently we got like a ton of board games just donated to us. Like, it's overflowing in one of our lounges. So I don't know, like, if the HRC was more rooted in tradition than we are, like, would that somehow, as alumni, make you all feel inclined to say more in it?
There's I think several challenges that the HRC has that Hillcrest doesn't face. And just starting structurally with the building itself, the way this building is set up, you've got a lot of kind of disjointed halls that in some cases don't have really any significant connection with one another. I mean, like 2 Low has always had problems with getting connection to the rest of the building, as has 3 High and 2 High to a lesser degree. And also just the amount of turnover that we've had with faculty principals, the fact that Dr. Stevens and Dr. Cole were only here for 3 years, and also Dr. Kaufman was only here for 3 years, so you're on your 3rd faculty principal in like, what, 6-7 years of existence, which is a really, like, not great. So you're getting a lot of discontinuity in leadership. Dr. Papillon also left, who was kind of really instrumental in setting things up here. And then the student turnover is also, I think, probably on the high side. Yeah.
I think you're right that like having a community rooted in tradition is like a good thing and would be good for that continuity moving forward. The difficulty that the HRC faces is because of the newness, the rapid turnover, the number of students itself just poses like the first question is probably like, how do we establish really strong roots of tradition that will carry through, that will keep our alumni close, is like also probably part of that question.
Yeah, I think I will say, I think because Ralph made me think of this, right? Like some halls have typically maybe been less involved in the larger community. I've always been kind of the opinion that that's not a bad thing, and I would like warn against trying to make everyone.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, it's like that's I don't know, like I remember when I was here, it was like I can think of certain halls that kept more to themselves, but like have probably some of the strongest communities I've seen, and like that was always kind of cool because it meant that there was usually a place for anybody. I think like my freshman year, 5th High was well known for being an island, but like 5th High was also like probably like the tightest knit hall community in the HRC, and like that kind of individuality in floor communities, I thought made the HRC kind of special. It does raise the challenge of, right, like those people found their place in the HRC and they were part of like the larger structure of the community, but maybe they never necessarily felt kind of like they fit in the larger structure of the community, even though they in a way kind of were, right? Yeah. So it's like grabbing those alumni are kind of tough, right? Because it was like a 5th High thing for them, less like an HRC thing for them, right? So it's like, that has good and bad, in my opinion, and I guess like gets bad in the terms of turnover and continuity. So don't know quite how to navigate that, but I do. That was something that was always good about the HRC, and I don't know if there's ever a way to fit that in there somehow, but just my 2 cents.
It's a question. I'm thinking more about, because you do. I was thinking more about halls where you have a hall that's kind of disjointed from the community and also disjointed from itself, which has happened sometimes. And like those are, I think, a little bit more of a problem. But yeah, no, halls that are strong communities in and of themselves, I think, are a really good thing for the building. Because some people just don't want to go hang out with like 70 people at once. It's too many fucking people. Yeah, the number of people that are here is definitely, I think, one of the bigger challenges too, because Hillcrest is, I mean, how many people are in Hillcrest? It's like under 200, right?
It's like 100.
Yeah. We're at what, like 4?
333, like, oh, really?
Okay.
College trains would really fit in those rooms.
Is that like RAs with roommates and things too, or okay? So it's on
probably dropping that a little bit. So we started at 330.
So 300, 350. Oh. Okay.
Yeah, I thought max capacity was like 312. I don't know.
Well, there's max capacity and then there's max capacity. Are we talking about people in lounges? Are we talking about RAs having roommates? Or are we talking about standard base level capacity? Yeah, no, it's a question. So, but that's that's the challenge for you all with the help of alumni who have seen and remember. And in the case of like Melanie Trammell's also still around, isn't she? Yeah. She wrote that history up at one point.
Yeah.
I think does do a pretty good job of recording kind of the earlier sequence of things for the building and the challenges that were faced and overcome and put on the back burner for you all to figure out.
She did us that last semester.
Ah.
That's where it's in
Very cool.
There's no
So we currently have an HRC LinkedIn group as a way of trying to reach out to like alum and connecting them with the people who currently live here. Just as people who are no longer, or at least for a period of time, are no longer in school and living your day-to-day life without it, maybe checking an @edu email address. Is that the best way you think of accessing like that group of people, or do you think that some other form, like another listserv, as was said earlier, might be better?
I think it's a good way. I think that's the thing, is it's probably not going to be one way. It's going to be like 5 ways, and like a listserv is one, and a LinkedIn group is one. Because like I'm hardly ever on LinkedIn myself, although I do check it occasionally. Maybe a Facebook group is one, although somehow I'm still on the Facebook group. So that's interesting from time to time. Definitely a listserv. And like some people are not going to want to be on the listserv, and some people are going to have an absolute blast with it. I'm thinking especially about like Bob Reiter and Joe. So yeah.
Yeah, for like anywhere. Like, maybe it's going forward doesn't hurt to have a few alumni that like less maybe volunteer to take a little bit more of a dedicated role. Like it's probably, I think like I can think of many names that you guys might have like probably never heard of, right? But I think would probably love to be connected to the HRC, given the opportunity. So maybe some kind of alumni relations specialist. I know, speaking of like fraternities, my fraternity had an alumni secretary, someone whose job it was to keep up with the alumni. And that like might not be bad to like, I don't know like how the structure of the council has changed either since then, because I know that was kind of like falling under a certain role maybe. All presidents. Yeah, it was like president. I know like Jordan tried to do that our freshman year. It's like things are fluid. But yeah, like I don't know, like speaking for myself, not anyone else, like I'm an alumni who'd be more than happy to help in that kind of capacity, reach out to other alumni and see who would be interested. And it does help because I think like we have a much larger social network than you guys, like in terms of the alumni at least, right?
Oh yeah.
We can give a lot of names and have a lot of emails.
Or we know people who like went to, like Caleb Cook went to, what's the big Swiss university for engineering and things. Anyway, he worked with like John Dooley there for a while, I'm pretty sure, like Colby did, and ended up at, what's the name of that university? It's like we've had people come through these places who have ended up doing some really wild things. And yeah, like I don't know how to get in touch with him directly, but I definitely could get in touch with him like through Adam or Nick, not Montgomery, the original Nick, the original RA Nick, whose last name fails me at the moment. Roberts, yes, that's the one.
Well, thank you guys so much for coming in and talking. I know that I've really appreciated listening to you guys. There is a lot of food still in the back. Please feel free to take some. Yeah.
Thanks, guys.